This is the test review for chapters 16 through 18 tests that you'll be taking next week. Instead of having an after-school study session, Coach Dragone and I wanted to just make a short little video so that everybody would have the opportunity to watch it over the weekend. So we're going to take a look at some of this. Again, this is not exhaustive, the answers that I'm going to give for this. This is just to point you in the right direction so that you don't spend a lot of time focusing on things that are in fact not going to be on the test. But the answers that I give on this video are not final. You need to use the answers that I give on this video to explore the information deeper using the book and the notes that you've taken in class. So number one is talking about the Protestant Reformation. Make sure that you're familiar with Martin Luther and how salvation by faith alone, and John Calvin with predestination. You need to know what those things mean specifically. Number two talks about the Catholic Reformation. Look at the reformation of clergy education, the creation of the Jesuits, and overseas missions. Number three deals with King Henry VIII. He wanted an annulment from his Catholic wife. He seized monasteries to give to his supporters. He challenged the Pope's authority, and Parliament made him the head of the Church of England. Describe the number four. Talks about the scientific revolution. Be familiar that this starts from a resurgence of Greco-Roman literature. The workings of science are used to explain natural phenomena. Be familiar with guys like Copernicus and the heliocentric theory, Kepler and Tycho Brahe with the elliptical pattern of the planets around the sun, Isaac Newton you need to be familiar with, Galileo, William Harvey, the circulation of blood. Number five is trading companies, specifically the Dutch East and West Indies Company and how they gained financial supremacy. Make sure you realize that they had a monopoly on products from the Indies. They formed joint stock companies. They attracted investors. They reduced trade risks, and they allowed the trade of stocks. I also have here the English overcame these trade monopolies by creating a great navy. Six is dealing with the Enlightenment. Best definition that I know of for the Enlightenment comes straight from the book, so this is from the book. A philosophical movement in the 18th century that felt they could reform society by discovering rational laws that governed social behavior and were just as scientific as the laws of physics. Number seven, explain the role of women in Europe during 1500 to 1750. Free choice in marriage, but they were still barred from most schools, guilds, and professions. Seven is, I just did seven. Eight, English Civil War. It started when Charles I refused to grant rights to Parliament and attempted to arrest his critics. This was a conflict over royal versus Parliament rights. In 1688, the Glorious Revolution ensured that England would be a constitutional monarchy. Oliver Cromwell took power for a while. Then the Stuart line was restored when Charles II ruled. 9, the Edict of Nantes. It eliminated religious freedom for French Protestants. The freedom that the French Protestants were originally granted, it's going to get rid of that. The revoking, make sure you use that keyword there, is the revoking of the Edict of Nantes. The Edict of Nantes gave it to them, but the revoking of it took it away. 10, what was the Palace of Versailles a symbol of? Royal absolutism, absolute authority. 11, John Locke, if a monarch abuses his power, the people had a duty and a right to rebel. 12, balance of power, forming alliances with other European states to ensure that no one became too powerful. 13, explain the impact.
This is the Uptown bus. 411. Do not miss this bus. It's the only bus for Uptown. 411.
All right, that's
4, 14, 16, 17, 18, 19 slots. 411 students. 411. This is Uptown.
all right. Explain the impact diseases had on the New World. It wiped out huge populations because the people did not have because the people didn't have immunities. 14. Explain the impact old world animal. Explain the impact old world animals and culture had on the New World. The horse allowed the Indians to hunt more effectively. The Catholic Church had a big impact on spreading language and religion. 15. Explain the impact of the New World plants on the Old World. The biggest impact was potato and corn. Maize, it caused a huge population growth in Europe. 16. What areas of Latin America did the Viceroyalty of Spain encompass? Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean. So really the Spanish holdings. 17 is dealing with the influence that silver had on Europe. It's going to lead to the promotion of commercial expansion and financing of industry. So really what this does is it's eventually going to lead to this to the Industrial Revolution that we're going to get to in a few chapters. 18, explain all the social classes in Latin America. All right. Spanish-born are the Peninsulares. They're on top. These are people born on the Iberian Peninsula. Then the Creoles, who are the pure Europeans, but they're born in the New World. Then you have the Mestizos, then the Mulattoes. Mestizos are the half Spanish, half Native American, Amerindian. The Mulattoes and the Castas. So look up what those groups are also, but that's your order. 19, list some differences between Brazil and the rest of Latin America. More African than anybody else, required more labor, and they were the least urbanized. 20, how did the English and the French colonies differ from Spanish and Portuguese colonies? French and British were late. They developed through the efforts of private companies. You guys, you have an extensive list of this from the comparative essay that you just wrote in class. 21, how did Amerindian population react to colonial economy? They provided fur and skins to traders. Amerindians, the hunting was disrupted. They became dependent on European goods, and the natural balance of plants and animals was disrupted. 22, why did New England colonies have the lowest mortality rate? It's really the climate, and because families came over, it was more of a stable area. 23, lists the differences between northern and southern English colonies. The northern colonies were more economically diverse, while the South was focused almost completely on farming. There's a bigger list than that in the book. I forget what page number it was exactly, but I pointed it out in class. It is in chapter 17, I believe. Okay, what I have here is on page...
This is the final call for 411. Final call for 411.
On page 506, I said, read the fourth paragraph in this section for a great list of similarities and differences between New England and the South, and it starts with immigration to Massachusetts. So page 506, you want to check that out. That's going to be one of the thesis statements for the test. 24, explain specific characteristics of the French colonies. They sought to convert the population to Christianity. Jesuits built schools, hospitals, and churches. 25, explain the importance of tobacco. It helped the British North American colonies survive because of lack of mineral wealth in North America. 26, how were plantation slaves motivated to work? Abuse, whippings, and beatings. 27, how did the Europeans ensure Africans would embrace European culture? Learning of the colonial language, converting them to Christianity, mixing slaves from different parts of Africa. You don't want a lot of slaves from the same part of Africa because then they would be more likely to rebel. 28, explain the English Navigation Acts. can, right here, confirm, I don't know what I wrote there. Really what it is it's the English are doing this so that they can control most of the trade. 29, 29, what were some differences between the Muslim and the European slave trade? Types of slaves traded, work that slaves did, and the volume of the slave trade. Look at those things specifically. That's another one of your thesis statements. 30, what effects did the slave trade have on the African population? The slave coast lost a huge amount of people. Even at the peak of the slave trade, the African population remained large because men were preferred over women, and so there was still reproducing going on. New food helped offset the population loss. Population loss was limited because mostly men were taken, not women. Let's see here, 31, how did the trans-Saharan slave trade differ from the Atlantic slave trade? This is the same as question number 29. And number 32, how did the profitability of the slave trade compare to other businesses, the business ventures of the day? African slave trade allowed for enormous wealth in the New World, wealth that was sent to Europe, wealth that fueled the rapid expansion of Western capitalization. If you have any questions, come see Coach Dragone or I in class.